Hi, welcome to Portage County Matters. I'm Patty Dreier, Portage County Executive. Glad that you're with us today. I was at the RSVP recognition this week, and some of the individuals who are volunteering for us in county government were saying how they watch the show all the time. Others I've heard are listening on the radio, and we're appreciative of anybody that tunes in at any time to get some more information about this awesome community that we live in. The one news note I wanted to mention at the top of the show before I welcome my guest, Mike Pagel, with the Wisconsin Towns Association, our local chapter, and also from the town of Lanark, is that I wanted to clear up a little bit of information related to the salary study that is ongoing in Portage County. I wrote out some notes here, and I want to guide you through just a little bit of background on this to make sure that we have the truth out there in our community about the salary study. As many of you know, Portage County hired a consultant, McGrath Consulting, that was asked to do a salary study. The goals were to merge multiple salary schedules for our 600 or so county employees, and these different salary schedules had evolved over decades quite independently from each other, and basically they were associated, most of them anyway, with different bargaining units. Different bargaining units. The goal of the salary study was to address a number of different issues, but two of the main ones were to develop a system that aligns the positions with market rates, especially with workforce shortages due in our near future, and ensuring that we've got people to fill these essential positions, but also we wanted to make sure that we align the positions with each other. If they'd been in separate schedules before, what happened was each kind of grew independently of the other, and we needed to bring them all into one broad, larger system that made sense and would create greater efficiencies and fairness across those schedules. So then, why do we want to do a system, to create a system of positions with the going rates for those positions per market? It's because it takes people, human capital here in Portage County to fulfill the mission of county government, and people in jobs of service are needed who have qualifications, various levels of education, who are skilled and knowledgeable, and who stick with it. For the more that people stick with these positions, since they take so long to train into them, the more efficient it is for all of us, and the better the service will be at the front desk, or on the telephone, or out in the community, wherever they are serving. Many of the positions have great responsibility, more than many people, I think, in our community truly give them credit. They require years of training, they're sometimes dangerous, they have very important work that keeps us as a vibrant community on the edge so that we can attract others to come and join our community, new businesses, for example, or new employees that are coming to take jobs in other businesses in our community. We need to attract and retain a highly professional workforce in county government, just like you would in any business. For in order to be most effective and efficient, it takes those wonderful people to keep that mission rolling forward, doing a great job for all of us. Right now, our current mix of salary schedules have many issues included with them. Sometimes employees have reached a ceiling. In fact, very often employees have reached a ceiling for their pay, and they don't have anywhere else to go except maybe a cost of living change. So there's no progression for them, no career progression. There's nowhere to climb on a scale that they've already ceilinged out after their first couple of years on the job. And even if they're performing an excellent job, they're ceilinged out. So what would you do in those situations? You would probably start looking around to see what else is out there to make sure that you could continue growing and serving and supporting your family. This new schedule will give them room to grow and a way to see their future and make decisions for their own future, something to count on. It's important to understand that a salary study is not about giving raises at all. It's about placing positions within a larger salary schedule system that aligns them with market. So if an employee has a smaller change in their new pay schedule, if the salary study was passed, it's because they were more aligned, they are more aligned with the current going rate for that position. They've been able to bank the money as they've gone along the way. For employees that have a larger change, it's due to falling way out of whack with the market. And those employees, instead of being demeaned by some others who are not having necessarily the best to say about those positions or people, very unfortunately, instead, we should be lifting them up. We should be thanking them for continuing to serve us, even though they could make $10,000 or more in another organization right in our area. And I think that's really important. It just is that we need to align them. These individuals that are making less than, significantly less than market, are still serving and are right here and are sticking with us. And where did the $520,000 come from for our salary study? It came from the employees themselves that haven't received a raise at all this year. They're waiting for the results of the salary study. In fact, some have been waiting for 2 years, for we have postponed reclassifications of positions in a deliberate decision-making process. We were waiting for the salary study to place them in the positions on the salary schedule where they should be for their added responsibility. So let's lift up county employees. Let's recognize that they are key to our quality of life, to all of our services, from Health and Human Services to highway to people serving in our nursing home, to people serving in law enforcement. There are over 600 employees serving you right here in Portage County, and thanking them is the right answer here. I want to put one other note to rest here. No county services were lost in developing this salary study. As I said, the employees themselves have not received any kind of a pay change, except to have paid more for their health insurance this year, those that are being tended to through this prospective salary study. So that's 100% false information. The other thing is that some have alleged that the county executive has cherry-picked or chosen certain positions to be paid more in the schedule. And in fact, that's 100% false. There's not one number, not one position that I have adjusted or asked to have adjusted in the entire pay schedule that is proposed by McGrath. I wanted McGrath to do their job. That is their job. They do this for communities all across the nation, for organizations all across the nation. And I have my trust that they will do good homework. Yes, the Human Resources Committee is doing some extra diligence. That's their job, and we'll carry on from there. So thank you for joining me in lifting up Portage County employees and for recognizing that a salary study to be implemented in our future is essential to ensuring that in a time when we're expecting 16,000 people in a workforce shortage in our immediate area and over 60,000 in our regional shortage in our near future per the Wisconsin Workforce Development Board strategic planning that I've been working on with them, this is really important for our future. So join me in making sure that our vital services are well staffed and cared for in our future. Thank you for that. Now, I want to turn and welcome to you, Mike Pagel, for rejoining me on Portage County Matters.
Thank you.
The Wisconsin Towns Association, our local chapter, is the organization that you are our chair of. Again, they had just re-elected you. We can talk about that, but you're also the chair of the town of Lanark, one of our 17 towns right here in Portage County. Welcome, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We knew we didn't have enough time, not even to touch the surface. It was kind of like an iceberg, right? We were way up at the surface, and we didn't even really dig into how important towns and how town governments work and so on. And that's why I wanted to make sure that we followed up right away to get you back here, and let's have a deeper conversation about our town government.
Okay.
Yeah, so how about you kick it off? What do you want to come out of the gate with in relation to town government here in our state and in our community?
Speaking of icebergs, I think that's probably a pretty big topic.
Yeah.
There are roughly 1,200 towns in the state of Wisconsin, and we actually make up 95% of the landmass in this state. And we have about 30% of the population. So we are not necessarily competitive with our votes with people in more urban or concentrated areas, but we have a lot of land that we are entrusted with and a lot of roads to take care of, something in the neighborhood of 61,000 miles of town roads.
I did not know that was 60. Really?
Believe me, we do.
How many do you have in the town of Lanark? Just curious.
Out of the 17 towns in Portage County, we have the fewest miles of town road in the town of Lanark. We only have 34. There are towns here in Portage County that have well over 70 miles of town road.
I think the town of Hall has well over.
I think that's true.
Where I live, yeah.
So we end up being responsible for creating them and maintaining them and keeping them passable. State statutes require that we plow them once every 3 weeks, but we tend to do it a bit more often than that so people can get to their mailboxes and get to school.
Seriously? The statute dictates when?
North Dakota actually has a provision where they have a plowing day. Every county has or every township has a plowing day. So if it's once a week. So let's say you need to go to town on Thursday and they plow it on Wednesday and it snows, you're going to be stuck until the following Wednesday. Everybody just plans for it. So it gets interesting. Towns are kind of an almost invisible phenomena compared to most other forms of government. We don't make the headlines very often. It's normally a part-time experience. You have a small board, frankly, not well compensated in most cases, but committed to making sure that the community runs well. And it is part of the community. It's the only place I know of where you can actually go and speak to people right in the middle of a meeting about something that's being discussed that'll affect the future of that community. It's often described as the most democratic form of government in the United States, and having now started my 20th year with it, I guess I would be inclined to agree.
Wow, and I had gone to the Wisconsin Towns Association website. For anybody that's listening and wants to check out that website, it's wisctowns.com, and it says right in their masthead on the website, lose local government and you will lose America.
Mm-hmm. I want people to imagine what it would be like to attend a meeting where you as a citizen have a direct vote on how much to tax yourself. We have an annual meeting in November where we present a budget that was assembled by the town board, and the citizens attending vote on whether or not they approve of that levy or if they want changes made to that levy. So I don't know of anywhere else where that occurs. You actually impact how much your property taxes are going to be, at least for the town. And we do a lot of other things, of course. We provide polling places, we provide the polling workers, we take care of the roads. We make sure that we have law enforcement, that we have fire protection, that we have EMS, animal control, which for various reasons in Portage County has always been a hot topic. We are responsible for comprehensive planning, and it really requires a broad education for people who are involved in this on a part-time basis, which is one of the reasons that the Towns Association exists. Their essential mission is to make sure that these part-time elected officials receive ongoing training so that they understand the scope and scale of their responsibilities. People stepping into these jobs don't necessarily have much background in open records laws or open meeting laws. You need to learn how properly to govern and engage citizens.
Well, that's so cool because, many people remember that I've mentioned on the show that one of the greatest capacities, I'll often say it that way, one of the greatest capacities I believe we have here in Portage County is a strong chapter, local chapter of our Wisconsin Towns Association that meets. Thank you again for your leadership and others that are stepping up to do the same. Every other Monday, last Monday of the month, in rotating town locations around the county with a potluck and then that continuing education. One of the things that I did, because I don't think there's a true appreciation necessarily out there for the random, holy cow, random topics that you do have to become a mini expert in. And so I looked at the 2015 68th Annual Wisconsin Towns Association Convention. I believe that was held in November, I think it was last year.
Usually late October.
Okay,
And
I was looking at that date on the website, yes.
I will mention that for the next 3 years, that convention will be held at the Holiday Inn in Stevens Point.
Really? That's very cool. Well, here are some of for the listeners out there that are joining us and listening to Mike Pagel talk about Wisconsin Towns Association and our local town governments. We have these kinds of subjects that were on that on that local state convention, pardon me. Okay, so best management practices and permitting of municipal transportation projects. culverts. All right.
Yep.
Recycling responsible unit basics, program efficiency and update. Government Accountability Board election training. Basics of a good rural road.
And that's the biggest chunk of our budget, and it's the biggest source of concern.
Yeah.
As you well know, the price of asphalt's gone up 131% in the last 8 years, and our property taxes are essentially frozen. So we're struggling to keep up.
You bet.
And our rural roads were built for traffic patterns that have evolved so dramatically. Most of our roads can't handle the weights that are put on them today, and between that and the weather, they don't last very long, and we're struggling to keep up.
And that's why implements of husbandry was one of the topics on this state conference as well. For these are the larger pieces of agricultural equipment that those roads aren't even usually wide enough to even handle in.
Width and weight. We're looking at 80,000-pound traditional weight limits that have now been pushed up to 92,000 pounds. And we're getting requests for vehicles to pass our roads that are in excess of 120,000 pounds. For every 15% increase in weight, the impact on the road doubles.
Wow.
So the passage of one semi-tractor trailer, fully loaded at 80,000 pounds, is equivalent to the passage of roughly 2,000 passenger cars. So when you figure that, and if somebody's emptying, let's say, a manure pit, they might have several hundred of those passages on a town road over the course of a day. A 30-year lifespan can pass by your eyes in a matter of hours.
So it's so interesting hearing you talk about that. We can obviously tell that you have been attending your training in relation to roads. And
well, when the public trusts you with making sure that you're making decisions with scant resources, you have to make absolutely certain that a dollar that's taken from people is spent in the best possible way. One of the real realities of town government is that there's no place to hide in a town hall, because those meetings are always open to citizens, and they come and watch you make decisions about the resources that they contribute to the community. And whether it's roads or brushing schedules or where we're going to pave this year, it all adds up.
So how many years have you been in your role in Lanark?
Just started my 20th year. I was a supervisor up until about 4 years ago when I became town chair. And I became chair of the Towns Association in 2001.
There you go. Wow, talk about making a difference.
Well, I'd like to think so, but one of the hallmarks, I think, of being involved in things like this is you always want to make sure that there are other people around who are willing and able to do what you do. And one of the biggest challenges that local government faces is finding interest in the next generation of people who are going to step up and take over these positions.
I actually put that down as the last point I was going to make sure that I was asking you about today. We really are, not just here in Portage County, but everywhere, concerned about this next generation of leadership for what it's, what it demands of us, and how we're aging out of our ranks in these government positions, very frankly.
And volunteerism is fading rapidly from the American landscape. The idea of volunteers stepping up for firefighting or first responder positions is really under threat right now. And because of the aging of the population, we're looking at greater needs for those folks than ever before. We had a Towns Association meeting about a year ago where they pointed out that this website that is run out of Shawano, they did a detailed study of the users and found that the average age of a user was 35, and I concluded that that had to be because they were having 6th grade kids all over the state visit the website, because when you look around the room at these Towns Association conventions, maybe 35 Celsius, but not Fahrenheit.
Honestly, I've been in those circles to see.
Yep.
Now, let's get back to some of the other roles that towns, or topics that towns deal with. At the state conference, you also had topics like broadband and e-commerce.
Yep.
You had why towns should have an audit. Planning from the outside in. Very interesting. And the public land survey system. So by the time I've gone through this list, these are the topics you dealt with, and we didn't even get at emergency management and preparedness. We didn't get at the whole, you can have EMTs, staff, ambulances, and all different kinds of other things that are truly, I mean, this myriad of subject matter is probably as broad as it can get.
And when I think about the phone calls that I get, many of them are conflicts between adjacent property owners. It's everything from livestock running at large, it's dogs barking, it's a fence that's in disrepair.
Fireworks?
I'm actually authorized to dispense fireworks permits, believe it or not, which is something I didn't know until I inherited the job and just discovered it in the fine print.
That might attract some other people to the, I'm just joking.
But even then, you had to take into consideration, do the neighbors have horses? Is the neighbor a veteran who might react adversely to suddenly having explosions going on in the night? So you end up taking things into account, and the calls come at all hours of the day and night, so you really do become ingrained in your community. I have the good fortune to serve with a remarkable team of people who are elected to these positions and take them as seriously as I do. Town chairs get most of the attention, I think, by the title, but the people who really do the most critical work are the clerks and treasurers, who I think are often overlooked, and yet they are the very core of these communities and make sure that things are done right. I really enjoy getting compliments on my clerk and treasurer, and I always make it a point to make sure that they know that the work that they do is appreciated. Absolutely.
I was noticing on the Wisconsin Towns Association website that there was dialogue in their FAQs about appointed versus elected positions. I mean, there are all these kinds of discussions at many levels of government, certainly at the county level as well. And do you have anything that you wanted to say on any of those matters? I mean, there's so many of these bills that have, well, actually, I think there are 3 or 4 new bills that affected town government that were highlighted there, and I'm not here to put you on the spot for those specifics, but the whole how you make it work at the ground level perspective, and so I'm going to use a word, making this up, officializing town government. It had been that the files were stored in somebody's garage or basement, and then you were worried about how do you maintain your, by law, the record you have to maintain when you can't be sure of what's going to happen with someone's basement. Yep. You know, there's all these different kinds of issues of the town's past compared to the towns now and into the future, municipalities.
Traditionally, rural towns met around the kitchen table of the clerk. Oh. That's the way it was done in many places. Then they avoided the expense of having to build a town hall. When I came on board, the treasurer in our township drove to people's homes to give them refund taxes if they overpaid their taxes. He also went door to door to do dog licenses. So those things have changed. Every town in this state is in a somewhat unique situation based on its geography and in its proximity to other communities, and sometimes just its soil type will make a difference. So I think there's a tendency for people to look at the towns in this county or any other and assume that they are a monolithic force and that the interests of the town of Belmont are identical to the interests of the town of Hull. No, not at all. That's right. And in some cases, their needs are in conflict. I think a lot of people also assume that the Towns Association and the local chapters serve as a separate political entity, but in fact, we make no political decisions as a group. We don't even post an agenda. We're not considered an open meeting because we don't transact business. We are simply there to make sure that people understand what's involved in doing their jobs. And one of the things that I've always enjoyed about this local chapter is the willingness of department heads at county government, who we interact with on a regular basis, law enforcement, highway department, zoning, right on down the list, to come in and engage with town officials and make sure that we understand each other's needs and we can facilitate each other's effectiveness. The last meeting was a classic example.
It was perfect, wasn't it?
Commission on Aging, talking about people struggling to get the documents they needed to be able to participate in the voting process and what we as towns could do to make sure that the word gets out. That empowered towns to do everything we possibly can for our citizens, and people left that meeting excited about it.
And then let's talk about emergency management at the last meeting. That was pretty neat.
Oh yeah, we're looking at challenges with staffing first responders. We wanted to make sure that people understood The Emergency Management Office is quite active right now on a wide scale of things, updating their plans and making sure that we're as responsive as possible. Everything from
And that you're as trained as you need to be as town officials. We're working on that.
Many of us have gone through the federal training to deal with emergency responses, and like you said, there's a lot that we need to become aware of.
It was great at the last Towns Association meeting to just have the Director of Emergency Management standing there and handing out the file folders to each municipality with their specific information inside, and then also to be delivering between that meeting and Election Day the information for us to have at every voting location in our hinterlands, as I call it, about the community alert system, our emergency notification system, and then also about trying to recruit first responders to continue to build our first line of response across the county for you know, when somebody needs to call, say, for an ambulance, these first responders are there, and they're the ones that save lives far more often than any ambulance ever.
People often perceive that healthcare begins when the box arrives, but actually healthcare begins when the first trained professional arrives, and often that's the first responder. Often unheralded, and we're struggling to make sure that we have enough, particularly as the population ages. So the idea was fostered to reach out into these communities and let people know that there's a need. And I know that in my township, people were picking them up. We're going to be doing that again in November. Lanark had 67% turnout in this primary election, and we're anticipating 85 to 90% turnout.
Terrific. Wouldn't that be fabulous?
But that's typical for us, and I think that's typical for a lot of towns. It's an amazing experience to walk into the town hall and watch all of these people engage each other, and they've known each other for a long time. New people are welcomed. It's just a fabulous experience. You talked about state impacts on local government. We recently received correspondence from our assembly rep that in the last session of the legislature, there were over 100 bills enacted into law that restricted the options of local government, in effect negatively impacted their authority, and that's a source of concern for us.
Indeed, and for not just local government at your level, the town level, but local government at the county level.
And school districts too.
Yep, and more unfunded mandates, so we can claim we save money there, but we put more pressure on all of us here to try to make the ends meet, if you would, to continue to provide quality services and maintain the quality of life in our communities for people of all ages.
It's a never-ending challenge.
Yeah. So for anybody that's listening out there that would want to consider stepping up into the town government role, what would you say to them, Mike, as we start to close the show now? And
okay, the first thing I would encourage them to do is to attend meetings. They're typically held on a consistent night. They're usually posted on the website. Get a feel for what's going on. Check out the websites. Volunteer to get involved. I'm always looking for people who are willing to serve on a plan commission, or I could appoint to a committee when you call me and say, I need somebody from the town of Lanark to serve in this capacity. If I know that there are people who are out there that are willing to dip their toe in to decide whether or not this is what they want to do, I think that's the best way to get started.
And even if you don't have a position available now, if they just step up and say, I have this expertise, keep me in mind. I have people do that for me on the appointments that the county executive makes, and really appreciate that. Well, Mike Pagel, as we're going to close the show, I just want to get back to the fact that it says on the Wisconsin Towns Association website, lose local government and you will lose America. I don't think there could be two people sitting here doing any kind of a show that believe in that more than you and I so appreciate your service in helping us keep America right here local on our doorstep right here in Portage County.
It's a real thrill to serve, and it's something I look forward to hopefully continuing to do, but that's up to the voters.
We understand that, but we know you have a lot of fans. Thank you very much.
My pleasure to be here.
I look forward to seeing you next month on Portage County Matters. Thanks.